Hello, help keep these videos free, current, and available for every student. Consider supporting by scanning the QR code to contribute. Any amount helps. Thank you.
Now let's talk about something that's one of the most important parts of your science fair journey, your research plan. Think of this like your project's blueprint. It explains what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, why it matters, and how you'll keep everything safe and organized. Let's walk through it step by step together. We start with the rationale. This is your why. Why is this project important? Why did you choose this topic? You'll want to give a little background here, just enough to explain the problem you're trying to solve or the question you're curious about. Maybe you read an article that sparked your interest, or maybe you noticed something in your own life or environment that made you wonder. This part helps the review committee understand the purpose behind your project. Next, you'll describe your hypothesis or engineering goal. If you're doing an experiment, you'll state your hypothesis, what you think is going to happen. If you're doing an engineering or design project, this is where you write your goal or objective, what you're trying to build, improve, or solve. Then we move into your materials list. Be specific here. Don't just say tools or liquids. List every major item you'll use, types of chemicals and concentration, brands of kits, equipment like thermometers or microscopes, and anything else that helps people understand what you're working with. This also helps identify any safety risks early on. Now comes the most important part of your research plan, the procedures. These need to be step by step of what you're going to do. Be very detailed and walk us through your experiment or build process like you're teaching someone else how to do it. Include how often you'll test or measure, how long the experiment will last, and what variables you're keeping constant. If you're using multiple trials or a control group, explain that here. Within the procedures section, be sure to talk about risk assessment and safety precautions. If you're using anything hazardous, like chemicals, sharp tools, biomaterials, or even hot glue, you'll need to include how you'll protect yourself and others. This might mean wearing personal protective equipment like gloves, goggles, or lab coats. You might work under supervision or only handle materials in a designated lab area. Also, if you're disposing of chemicals or biological materials, you need to explain your disposal plan. For example, certain solutions may need to be neutralized, and biological waste may need to be sealed and discarded according to lab rules. Always check the safety data sheets. Those are like the instruction manuals for how to safely use and dispose of chemicals or substances. Now for your data analysis plan. This is where you explain how you'll collect and analyze your results. Are you recording measurements in a table? Will you use graphs or charts? Are you averaging multiple trials? Explain how your data will help you answer your original question or meet your engineering goal. You should also include how you'll make sure your results are valid. Will you repeat tests? Will you use a control group? Mention anything that helps make your data more reliable. Now let's discuss the bibliography and a few extra things that only apply to certain kinds of projects. First up, your bibliography. This is where you show that you've done your homework. You need to list the major references you've reviewed while developing your project, things like science journal articles, books, and reliable internet sources. Think of it as giving credit to the scientists and experts who helped shape your thinking. If your project involves vertebrate animals, you'll need at least one reference that's specific to animal care. This helps show you understand how to treat animals ethically and responsibly. Here's a super important note. If anything in your plan changes after you've submitted it, like new materials, new procedures, or even adding a location, you may need to submit an addendum, which is just an update to your original plan. But heads up, if that change affects risk or safety, you'll probably need new approval from the SRC or IRB before continuing. So always talk with your adult sponsor before making changes mid-project. Once your research plan is written clearly and completely, it gets attached to Form 1A, and it's reviewed before you begin your experiment. Hi, you just covered my face with Form 1A. Anyway, this is how everyone, your sponsor, the review board, and the judges, understands exactly what you're setting out to do and how you're going to do it safely and ethically. So take your time, be detailed, and don't be afraid to ask for help. Thank you for uncovering my face. To summarize, your research plan is your project story before it even begins, and getting it right sets you up for success. Make sure you go through Forms 1, 1A, 1B, and 3 to fully understand the minimum forms that will be needed to turn in before you begin experimentation. You may have noticed there is a whole bottom to the research plan directions that I have not discussed. Let's walk through the final part of your research plan that comes after the bibliography. These sections are really important because they make sure your project is safe, ethical, and in line with ISEF rules. First up is human participants research. If your project will involve people in any way, like surveys, testing, or collecting data, you'll need to clearly explain what the participants will be asked to do, how you'll recruit them, and what risks, if any, might be involved. You'll also need to say how you'll protect their privacy, keep data confidential, and whether informed consent will be needed. Think of this as showing that your participants will be treated with respect and safety at all times. Next is vertebrate animal research. If your project involves animals with backbones, like fish, frogs, mice, or even pets, this section is where you describe exactly what the animals will experience. You'll explain housing, care, feeding, and any procedures you'll be doing. The focus here is on minimizing discomfort, pain, or stress for the animals. You'll also want to show why using vertebrates is necessary instead of invertebrates. Be clear about veterinary oversight, daily monitoring, and your plan for humane treatment at all times. After that comes potentially hazardous biological agents, often called PHBAs. This could mean bacteria, mold, viruses, tissue samples, blood, saliva, or anything biological that could pose a risk. In this section, you'll describe exactly what biological materials you'll use, how you'll handle them safely, and where the work will take place. You'll need to include the biosafety level of your lab and how you'll protect yourself and others. Always mention the use of personal protective equipment like gloves, goggles, or lab coats. The idea here is to prove that you'll follow safety rules and that you understand the risks. Finally, you'll explain any work with hazardous chemicals, activities, or devices. This covers a wide range of things like strong acids and bases, flammable materials, controlled substances, or even power tools and lasers. Here, you'll list the hazards, explain how you'll reduce risks, and note any supervision that will be in place. If you're using chemicals, you should also mention disposal methods guided by the safety data sheets for each material. Be clear about the personal protective equipment you'll use and make sure safety is always the top priority. One last reminder, if your project changes during the year, you'll need to update this research plan. Sometimes that means adding an addendum, but other times a new approval process may be required. Keeping your plan current is just as important as writing it correctly the first time. This is everything you need to know about the research plan. So take your time, be detailed, and don't be afraid to ask for help. Your research plan is your project's story before it even begins, and getting it right sets you up for success. You've got this.
Remember, help keep these resources free, current, and available for every student. Consider supporting by scanning the QR code to contribute. Any amount helps. Thank you.